The night a simple favor changed everything. This is something I've kept locked away for a long time, something I haven't dared to tell anyone. But I need to get it out. My name is Alex. I'm 28 years old, and I live in a small, quiet town, nestled in the rolling hills, the kind of place where not much ever really happens. Or at least, that's the facade. Beneath the surface, things can get complicated. This is about one of those times. It wasn't planned. Not in the slightest. It was a Tuesday evening, late summer. The air outside was thick and humid, heavy with the scent of jasmine from the creeping vine by my porch. I was supposed to be preparing for a presentation the next day, sitting at my desk, surrounded by scattered notes and a rapidly cooling cup of tea. The window was open a crack, letting in the drone of cicadas and the distant sound of a neighbor's lawnmower. Mundane, completely, utterly mundane. And then my phone buzzed. A message from Liam. He lived just down the street, in that old house with the overgrown garden and the perpetually slightly ajar gate. We weren't exactly close friends, more like friendly acquaintances. We'd nod on the street, maybe exchange a few words about the weather or the local farmer's market. That was it. Or so I thought. The message was simple. Power's out here. Stupid old wiring. Any chance I could borrow a flashlight? Can't find mine. I typed back instantly. Yeah, sure. Come over. A few minutes later, there was a knock. I opened the door, and there he was. Liam. He was wearing a faded t-shirt and shorts, looking slightly disheveled, his dark hair a little damp from the humidity. He had this quiet energy about him, a sort of reserved intensity I hadn't really noticed before. Maybe it was the twilight filtering through the trees behind him, or the fact that the air felt charged even before he arrived. Hey, he said, his voice a low rumble. Thanks for this. It's like pitch black in there. No problem, I replied, stepping aside to let him in. Come on in, just grab my big camping one. He followed me inside. The house felt unnervingly quiet after the outdoor sounds. The only light came from the single lamp I still had on, mine hadn't gone out, and the soft glow from the streetlights outside. He stood awkwardly for a moment in the hallway, glancing around. Nice place, he murmured. Thanks. It's cozy. I walked into the living room, retrieved the large LED flashlight from beside the sofa, and turned back to hand it to him. As I did, he took a step closer. The air shifted. Suddenly, we were standing much nearer than usual. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the faint warmth radiating from him. The mundane world outside faded away, replaced by the sudden, sharp awareness of him. Here you go, I said, my voice a little breathier than intended. He reached out, and our fingers brushed as he took the flashlight. And then, his hand lingered. Just for a second. A small, seemingly accidental touch. But something in that brief contact sent a jolt through me. A surprise of electricity that felt entirely out of place in my carefully ordered life. His gaze met mine. And that's when it happened. That quiet intensity in his eyes deepened, shifted. He wasn't just looking at me. He was seeing me. And not in the way neighbors see each other. There was something else there. Something hungry. Something that mirrored a sudden, unexpected answering hunger that flared deep within me. The air crackled. It wasn't the cicadas anymore. It felt like static electricity before a storm. My heart started a frantic rhythm against my ribs. My palms felt suddenly damp. His thumb, still against the back of my hand holding the flashlight, stroked lightly. Just once. A feather-light touch that felt like a brand. My breath hitched. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His eyes were doing all the talking. They dropped from my eyes to my lips, lingering there for a fraction of a second, longer than was polite, longer than was safe. And then, very slowly, he leaned in. My mind screamed stop, But my body was already leaning in too. It felt utterly involuntary, like a magnetic pull. His lips were soft, tentatively at first, just a light pressure against mine. It was a question, and my instantaneous, desperate response was the answer. My hand, the one not holding the flashlight, reached out, almost of its own accord, finding its way to his chest. I could feel the steady beat of his heart beneath the thin fabric of his t-shirt, a counterpoint to the wild hammering of my own. The kiss deepened. The tentative softness vanished, replaced by a hungry urgency that took my breath away. His arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me flush against him until there was no space left between us. I could feel the lean, hard strength of his body pressed against mine, the slight roughness of his shorts against my thighs. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, wanting more. His mouth moved on mine with a desperate intensity, his tongue exploring, tasting, demanding. A low moan escaped my throat, a sound I didn't recognize. It wasn't discreet, it was raw need. The air grew hotter, thicker. The scent of jasmine was replaced by the intoxicating smell of his skin, a warm, musky scent that made my head spin. I pressed myself into him, wanting to feel every inch of him. My body felt like it was humming, vibrating with a pleasure so intense it was almost painful. He lifted me slightly, without breaking the kiss, and I instinctively wrapped my legs around his hips. He carried me backwards, stumbled slightly, and then we were against the wall, cooler paint a stark contrast to the heat of our bodies. His hands moved lower, gripping my thighs through the fabric of my shorts, holding me against him. I could feel the hardness of his erection pressing against me, a blunt, insistent demand that sent a shockwave through my entire system. My back arched instinctively, pressing myself harder against that delicious pressure. A gasp tore from my lips as he ground his hips against mine. A slow, deliberate friction that made a wave of heat flood me, centered low in my belly. It was an ache, a burning, a deep pulsing need that was building with terrifying speed. His mouth left mine, trailing hot, wet kisses down my jawline, along my throat. I tilted my head back, giving him access, my eyes closed, lost in the sensations. His lips on my sensitive skin sent shivers down my spine. His teeth nipped lightly at my collarbone, eliciting another strangled sound from me. "God, Alex," he murmured against my skin, his voice thick with desire. "You feel so good." His words, raspy and urgent, were like fuel to the fire raging within me. My hands moved from his hair, sliding down his back, feeling the taut muscles beneath his shirt. He groaned softly as I trailed my fingers lower, pressing against his back, urging him closer still. The flashlight, forgotten, clattered to the floor beside us, casting a beam of artificial light onto the ceiling as it rolled away. Neither of us noticed. The only light that mattered was the electric charge passing between us, the sparks flying in the sudden, intense darkness we had created. He kissed his way back up to my mouth, and this time the kiss was deeper, more primal than before. His tongue plunged deeply into my mouth, mimicking a rhythm that was already throbbing through my veins. I met his urgency with my own, our tongues dancing, wrestling, tasting each other with an insatiable hunger. My hips began to move against his on their own, a slow, sensual grind that was purely instinct. The friction against his hardness was exquisite, a sweet agony that was pushing me closer and closer to the edge. A delicious wetness was blooming between my thighs, a clear sign of my body's eager response. The desire pooling, heavy and demanding. His hands released my thighs, sliding upwards under my shirt, finding the bare skin of my back. His touch was hot, sending goosebumps across my skin despite the heat radiating from our bodies. He pulled my shirt up and over my head in one fluid motion, tossing it aside. Then his hands were on my waist, pulling me even tighter against him. I could feel the rough fabric of his shorts against my bare skin, the delicious abrasion that intensified the sensations building below. He leaned his forehead against mine, breathing heavily, his eyes closed for a moment. I didn't expect this," he whispered, his voice raw. "Neither did I." I managed to rasp back, my own voice shaky. But there was no hesitation, no pulling back. The desire was too strong, too overwhelming. My fingers fumbled with the hem of his t-shirt, desperate to feel his skin against mine. He helped, shrugging it off, and then we were skin to skin, chests pressed together, the pounding of our hearts a frantic duet. His skin was warm and smooth, the muscles of his chest and arms hard beneath my touch. I wrapped my arms around his neck, burying my face in the crook of his shoulder, inhaling the intoxicating scent of him, a primal mix of sweat and something uniquely his. He lifted me again, my legs still locked around him, and began to walk, blindly, towards the sofa. It was only a few steps, but it felt like an eternity, the friction as he walked driving me wild. He lowered me gently onto the soft cushions, hovering over me, his weight pressing me into the sofa. He looked down at me, his eyes dark with desire, a smirk playing on his lips. "Okay?" he breathed, his voice low and husky. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, my eyes wide, my body practically begging him. He lowered himself between my legs, the hard ridge against the wetness between my thighs making me cry out softly, a sound swallowed by the sudden, deep kiss he initiated. His hands were everywhere now, exploring, touching, igniting fires wherever they landed, along my sides, down my hips, the backs of my knees. Each touch was an affirmation, a deepening of the moment. My hands were busy too, exploring him, feeling his strength, the heat of his skin. I pulled him closer, wanting the friction, the burning, the exquisite pressure to continue. My hips lifted against his, a silent plea. He groaned into my mouth, understanding my need. His hand slid down my thigh, tracing the curve, his fingers brushing against the edge of my shorts. The air felt so charged, thick enough to taste. Every nerve ending in my body felt alive, tingling, focused entirely on the point of contact between us, the building pressure, the exquisite pulsing ache. His body was a furnace against mine, radiating heat. His breath was hot against my ear as he whispered my name, a reverent, needy sound that made my abdomen clench. I bit my lip, biting back another moan as he ground his hips against me again, harder this time, a deliberate, intoxicating movement that pushed me further towards the edge. The wetness between my thighs felt like a burning river, a silent testament to how ready I was, how desperately I wanted this. My body felt heavy and light at the same time, trembling with anticipation. Every nerve was singing, focused on the intense, delicious pressure building lower and lower, a coil winding tighter and tighter. His lips returned to mine, the kiss demanding, consuming. His hips moved with a slow, steady rhythm that drove me wild, each thrust against me, sending shockwaves of pleasure through my core. I clung to him, my fingers digging into his shoulders, completely lost in the moment, in the sensations, in the sheer, unexpected intensity of it all. The house outside the circle of our immediate heat was silent now. The cicadas had stopped, the neighbor's mower was quiet. There was only the sound of our ragged breathing, the soft friction of skin against skin, the low moans escaping our lips. It was just us, two people who were supposed to be neighbors, caught in an unexpected, overwhelming storm of desire, My body was arching, seeking, needing. The pressure was building to an almost unbearable peak, tightening, focusing all my awareness to that single point of contact, that delicious friction. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. And then, just as I felt the tension coil one last time, preparing to snap, a wave of pure, unadulterated pleasure broke over me, hot and intense, sending tremors through my limbs. My body convulsed against his, a soft cry escaping my lips. He held me tightly, his own body trembling slightly against mine. He lowered his head back onto my shoulder, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Wow," he whispered, the single word heavy with meaning. "Yeah," I managed, my own voice weak and shaky, my body still humming with the lingering echoes of the climax. We lay there for a moment, tangled together on the sofa, the air still thick with the aftermath of our sudden, explosive intimacy. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was filled with the unspoken understanding of what had just happened, the unexpected, raw connection that had ignited between us in the dark. This is my confession. It started with a simple question about a flashlight, and it ended like this. On my sofa, in the dark, with a neighbor I barely knew, caught in a moment of pure, unadulterated lust that neither of us saw coming. It was wrong, in many ways. But God, it felt so incredibly, overwhelmingly right in that moment. And that's the part one can't get out of my head. The heat, the need, the feeling of my body coming alive like that. It's burned into my memory. And I know, deep down, it's changed everything.